Why do some characters just seem to stick with us? And some shows just can't seem to die? Well, we're going to be discussing that and much more today on Systematic Geekology, another episode of What's News. We're talking about Dexter Resurrection Season 1. We're talking about Elio, new to Disney Plus. We're talking about Futurama Season 13, also new to Disney Plus. And of course, we're talking about Batman Deadpool, issue number 1. It's going to be a great time, and I couldn't do it without a great guy here with me, the one and only Christian Ashley. How's it going?
All right, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing okay. Still getting over this cold and cough and sneeze, and it's probably hay fever. My body despises ragweed. Yeah. And I don't blame
Yeah.
I think I agree
I'm
with
surprised
my body.
I haven't fallen yet. Yeah, as bad as my allergies are. It's going to come, and there's going to be a reckoning.
I will say a prayer tonight. I will also say a prayer for anyone who joins us live. And of course, we'll also shout out where you guys are from. If you do join live and put in the comments where you're from, we'll shout that out. Also, we'll shout out what you're geeking out on if you put it down there. I'll shout out almost anything you put in the comments because I'm desperate. Yeah. Well, guys, if you're on a laptop, consider rating and reviewing our show on Podchaser or Good Pods. It helps our show gain recognition, makes it easier to find in search engines like Google. So, like, if people Google, how dumb is Josh, they might find it if you put it in the comments. So, just try that. Try that. If you're on your phone, consider rating, reviewing, or commenting on our show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It prioritizes our show in those apps' algorithms, which is where most people listen to podcasts. It literally takes a couple seconds. You have to hit, like, 3 buttons to leave a 5-star rating on Spotify. It's free. Doesn't even take a full minute, and it helps our show a whole lot. Like, seriously, a whole lot. So we really appreciate that. We also really appreciate the people who have a little more oomph, who use maximum effort by supporting us with their funds. Today, we're going to shout out one of our sponsors, as always, from Apple Podcasts, Captivator, Patreon, and today it's Ethan Overcash. Ethan, you're amazing, handsome, smart, kind. You're a wonderful guy. And if you guys want your own shout out and random compliments, you too can support our show for $3 a month on one of those 3 platforms, Apple Podcasts, Captivate, or Patreon. I don't think we have any comments yet, so we'll just go ahead and move straight to y'all's favorite part, I believe, lightning round. Yeah, all right, lightning. So these aren't our main topics, just other things that are new that we enjoy. Christian, go.
Yeah, just real briefly, I'm still enjoying Peacemaker. It's been some really fun choices made there with the alternate universe and Peacemaker, living in the life of the other one, given what he does to the other one, and then how he's also screwing up his life at his home reality. It's real fun. Then Alien Earth continues to be amazing. I've had a ton of fun with it. I'm looking forward to the discussion we'll end up having about that later on. Whenever it's done, the What's New comes out.
Oh yeah. That's gonna be a great one. I haven't started Alien Earth yet. I still need to. I am in Peacemaker. Peacemaker's been phenomenal. There's been a few pretty good comics lately. I'm trying to think of the one. It was like a big crime comic that I've been reading. Oh, and it was on iFanboy. It was one of their top picks. So just go to iFanboy, guys. But thinking what else? Well, the main picks are the ones I'm talking about. Strange New World. I'm finally catching up on it and how it ended, and I'm surprised we haven't done an episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
We covered a little bit of it. One of the last news.
Yeah.
But we haven't done the whole thing yet. Yeah.
It's so good. And of course, following along all the exciting Disney announcements for the parks. I'm getting excited for some of that. Some of the Universal announcement and hits. They more or less just confirmed we're getting Wizard of Oz land somewhere, and that's just cool. Like I'm pretty pumped for that. And I'm trying to think. I don't know. I've been doing a lot of catching up, so not a lot of like new things. More like catching up on One Piece, Fallout, because I never really played Fallout, etc. So I think that might be it for now. I'll probably remember stuff later. Be like, man, why didn't you mention that? But it's fine. South Park. That voice made me think.
Yes.
South Park, absolutely. How could we not mention? It's been gold. Yeah.
Yes. Absolute
Yeah.
gold.
Yeah, and man, I don't even maybe by the time this comes out, and if not, it'll be really soon after. We're getting the last of the Marvel What If books or audiobooks because as TJ and I discussed on one of our What If episodes, the audiobooks are way better for this particular series. So let me see. What if Kitty Pryde stole the Phoenix Force? It's October 14th, so this will be out before that releases. I might want to do an episode when it comes out because I'm excited to see how this story wraps up.
I thought that was like MCU stuff only, so that's interesting. Though, getting her out.
Yeah. Also, Doom is pretty prevalent, and it is an overarching story, so it's yeah, highly recommend that one. So, all things said, I think that's going to mark the end of our lightning round. And I'm going to throw it first to one of Christian's picks that I was super excited to read before we recorded and then realized it's not on Kindle yet. Deadpool Batman issue 1. Christian, take it away.
Okay. So some of you big comics fans out there already know DC and Marvel have crossed over multiple times before. There were a couple little one-off issues, in the 70s and 80s, with Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, Hulk. Then you get the Teen Titans and X-Men. Then in the 90s, you had the great Marvel versus DC, which is the biggest excuse comic that ever existed. But you know what? The excuse was needed just for that to happen. It was a ton of fun. It created the amalgam universe where we got the different Marvel characters and DC characters becoming like amalgamated into a singular character that unfortunately they haven't really done a lot with because, well, sometimes companies can't play nice with each other. So it's been a huge drought of Marvel DC crossovers from the 90s until now, outside of the Justice League and Avengers run in the 2000s that Will and I covered a while back. So check out that episode. So we finally get it, and it's coming back, and I decided to do it with Batman and Deadpool. And that was a pairing. It's like, okay, I can kind of see it. And you know what? They work well enough here. We start off in Wayne Manor with Bruce kind of brooding, as is his forte, and Deadpool just swings through the glass, crashes into Wayne Manor, and it goes bonkers from there. Find out that the Joker is trying to destroy the city with, of course, his toxin, his venom, and Deadpool has been contracted by him to fool the Batman into coming there, but you find out the Batman figured it out the whole time. And it's I can't remember the character he gets involved with, but the Joker had made a deal with someone in the DC universe to find someone that he could use as a distraction against Batman who would share some of his chaos. And Deadpool was the person from across the multiverse who was chosen for this. And the shenanigans that come from that, Batman plays them off of each other. He messes with the Joker by saying, well, maybe Deadpool's an even better enemy to me than you. And of course, that gets under the Joker's skin. Now, I can say, like, the story isn't anything groundbreaking, but it's a ton of fun. I don't really like the Joker's appearance in this one. It looks like they chose different models and eras, all combined them into one. It just didn't work for me. But beyond that, it's fun. It's good. But this isn't the only thing we get. We also get my favorite part of this, which is actually pretty much the other ones that come out. They all kind of run under the premise, kind of like they did in the 90s for some of the crossovers and the 70s too, where they create a universe where Marvel and DC have always interacted. So you get the crossover is Captain America and Wonder Woman. So it starts off with them in World War II kind of interacting, and there's some real some romance on that side between the two of them. But he still is frozen in ice for several years, and we flash forward and we see the Avengers are, I think it's Iron Man, Superman, Wonder Woman, the Wasp, Giant Man, and then they find Captain America. And so like they're not covering all these things. So they go through the different, like there's a Crisis of Infinite Earths kind of situation as well. And then you get the very end of Steve's life, so like he and Wonder Woman have kind of like become friends and like even romantic, partner. I don't know if they ever used the word wife and husband, but that's kind of the implication. And like their love is shown over that time, and eventually he dies in whatever next crossover event there is, and it's him looking back and said, "Man, to the extent of I pity any universe where we aren't together because we're perfect." And it was really sweet. I enjoyed that one a lot.
Nice. When was that recent?
This just released last Wednesday.
What, Captain America and Wonder Woman?
It's inside the same comic, so it's a little larger. Because there's also one between Crypto the Superdog and Jeff the Land Shark. Was just I never really cared for Jeff as much as everyone else seems to do. But it's just a nice little crossover, just them playing with each other. That was fun. There's a Daredevil and Green Arrow where they're kind of fighting in Hell's Kitchen together against the Hand.
Cool. Well,
and
so
then
so this is like a thick comic book.
Oh yeah, it's fairly meaty. Then there's also a Batman. Excuse me, not Batman, an older Wolverine done by Frank Miller, and his art has gotten worse over time, and the story is very incomprehensible and bad. And then there's like a final one where it's basically an amalgam version of Wolverine and Lobo kind of together, and that's better. Oh, sorry. There's another one. It's the Guardians of the Galaxy and the Green Lantern Corps kind of working together. It's more of a humorous one of them like trading Rocket Raccoon to become a Green Lantern, and I think Hal Jordan to join the Guardians. So overall, I think they did a pretty good job on it.
Okay. See, I thought this was going to be like a little mini series, and it was just a Batman Deadpool story. I didn't realize it was like a whole like compilation almost. That's really cool. I did know this is kind of cool because I follow Scotty Young's Instagram and Reddit and everything. I like him a lot. But one thing is really interesting. So his variant cover we have on the screen if you're on YouTube that he does originally. The bat signal was just the Deadpool symbol, like completely. But people confused it and thought that it was saying that it was the X-Men with Batman and Deadpool. And apparently they got so confused he had to change it. And he's like, I've literally always done the Deadpool symbol this way. I don't know why people thought it was X-Men. But it looks cool this way.
I thought it was Wolverine.
Yeah, I don't know. But it looks cool this way, so I'll take the Bat Deadpool symbol together. Also, Scotty Young variants are just always great. And Will actually has one of the variant covers, so yeah, props to Will. So anything meaty to take away from it, or is it just kind of fun? I do see Deadpool Joker makes sense. Yeah, by the way, I was just gonna say, like, I get it.
Like, I enjoyed stuff like this a lot. It's nice when companies play nice with each other, because there's a reason, the original Amalgam universe kind of petered out, because Marvel and DC were just kind of getting greedy on different side of things, and doing crossovers like this, one side has, or we have to make this much money to justify it. We have to make this much money to justify it. Instead of you're a company, you're supposed to make a profit. Don't get me wrong. Like, some of these things are just for fun, just to do them. And one thing that we didn't get, and if I remember this correctly, there were plans for either in the 90s, either Daredevil or She-Hulk to go over to DC for a while, and for Martian Manhunter to come to Marvel. But obviously there's a huge licensing issues that would have been erupted from that happening. So it makes sense why they didn't do it, but it was such a fun idea. So like,
yeah,
what every comic fan loves, they love their DC, they love their Marvel. And yeah, I think Marvel's better overall, but that doesn't mean I don't love DC. So I like seeing them interact with each other. And so it's a bunch of fun. So that's one side of it. And it sounds like we may be getting more down the road. They've been kind of cagey on it, whether this is a one-off or whether there's more planned. And I would want more. I mean, I'm satisfied with this. Don't get me wrong. They did a good job with it. But as for like deeper stuff from it, I mean, There's some good character studies of Batman and Deadpool. It's like so many people write Deadpool as if he's just some goof who just all random. But there's a method to the madness here, and it's shown. It's like in the betrayals that are done, and how Batman can manipulate Deadpool, while at the same time they can kind of end up like having appreciation for each other, and that's just a fun part of comics, is to have characters who you think there's no way. Deadpool is a killer. Batman is the definition of never kill at all, if at all possible. And yet they come together for a common goal against a far greater threat that is the Joker. And there's a good story, good enough story. It's not, like I said, not the best, but it does a good enough job.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can see these specific two characters working for a couple reasons. One would be like money wise, just thinking of like market. You do see a lot of people who are like, I'm a Marvel guy, but I'll still read Batman. And you see a lot of DC people who are like, I'm DC, but I mean, I'm going to read Deadpool. So like, I feel like they chose the two that like, if you only like Marvel, you still usually like Batman. And if you only like DC, you still usually like Deadpool. So I feel like that's kind of a lot of the reason behind it. But also it's interesting seeing like the chaos of Deadpool and the stoicism of Batman, and especially like thinking of it like their meta perspective. And I don't know. Hang with me.
Yes.
Deadpool not only is like, I believe there's more than this, is like straight up, I know that people are writing this. This is a comic book. And Batman is so stoic, I don't think he could ever contemplate anything greater than the world they're in. I feel like he's smart, like he can figure stuff out, but I think he's so down in his own darkness that I don't think he could believe in something greater, you know? He's more maybe, but not greater. I don't know. That was one to me that I was like, it's interesting because Batman is so stoic that I feel like he has a hard time seeing outside of the next threat, basically. Where Deadpool is like, man, it doesn't matter if I die.
I think that's fair enough.
Do you kind of see any of that like playing off each other? Do they do any of the meta stuff, or are they just kind of tell the story and let? Because I feel like Deadpool doing the meta stuff might get a little out of hand in this.
There's at least one meta moment I can think of they make a joke about the Joker's butt, and Deadpool's kind of like, oh yeah, and it's obvious from the comic panel that it's done for the sake of showing that off. Like they're looking at the readers while that's happening. But as far as him and Batman, I'm sure something is said, but I don't have it in front of me to read it and remember that.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. Well, then, if you're good, you want to go next topic? I think mine's the next topic.
Let's do it.
All right. I got Futurama coming up next. Season 13, I believe it is. We're in these annoying 10-episode seasons. I understand why we're doing them. I do. And I think for Futurama, I don't think it suffers as much because it's so episodic that like 10 episodes every other year or 20 episodes all at once, there really isn't a huge difference when you're episodic storytelling instead of like long form storytelling. You know, they don't really do that as much. They do references, but the way the show works, they can get away with it and not overwork the animation people or the writers, and that's probably all good. I enjoyed this season a lot. You do get a lot of like emphasis on logic for some reason. That they go to a world that's all just numbers, literally just numbers. Nothing else exists. How dare you think that anything that's not numbers exists? And of course they do some like really blatant commentary that's Futurama is known for. They have the one episode of they have one episode where basically they're like, oh, wait a minute, climate change, the world's going to burn. It's going to be just like the climatostrophe of the 21st century. And they go through all this thing and they show the numbers. Like, how can people not see these numbers? And keep trying to change things. And eventually people decide, wait a minute, we do care. Not because of other humans, but because look how cute those little bears are. And of course, at the end, They realized they made the Earth too cold, and the professor looked at the wrong numbers, and those are the numbers from 2025, not 3025. And they like, wait a minute, those are the exact numbers, and people didn't see it. And they literally like they do it so much that it's painful, which I think makes it funny. They're like, you mean those are the exact same numbers? Like that is literally the numbers? Yes, these are literally the numbers of 2025. Exactly the numbers of 2020. Like, and they still didn't do anything? Of course not. No one showed them how cute the bears are.
Something to say about observational comedy like that. It's like the observation is this is a legitimate thing right here. Here's the factual information, whatever, regardless of what the issue is. And make humor based off of that, because you can tell people that all day long, and yet the veil or whatever it is over their eyes just won't break in two.
Oh yeah, like that episode specifically, I was rolling, even though I kind of saw from the beginning what was going to happen, and it was going to end up being our numbers. Like I just figured, because I've been watching Futurama too long, but like, you know, eventually it's just a bunch of numbers on an Excel. It's like, why are you showing people that? And what's funny is like they don't just pick on one side and they're like, oh, Republicans are stupid. Like they literally show all these different perspectives and kind of make fun of everybody, because you know it's a comedy show. The point isn't to say, hey, here is the correct answer. It's to make fun of everybody on all sides. So, you know, they have Fransworth showing all the numbers, and it's like, those mean nothing. That's literally just a bunch of numbers on a paper. What are you? And then him getting aggravated and be like, what do you want to make it a cartoon or something? Like, that's dumb. And then Amy makes it a graph where the bad numbers are in red. And everyone's like, whoa, it really is bad. Why hasn't anyone just shown it in such a simple way before? Why is everybody making it so complicated? And the professor being mad, like, because it is complicated. It's like, okay, but we didn't understand it before. And it just kind of really is making fun of everybody on all sides. And even, you know, have the one person who's like, well, there's nothing we can do at this point. It's irreversible. We're all going to die anyway. And of course, Bender goes, yeah, let's riot. And it's just like,
he needed the reason.
Yeah, and it's just comedy to me, like comedy gold, and it really does show the absurdity of how everybody's behaving about this particular topic. And they do that all throughout the series. They have someone who I think was meant to be like a MAGA kind of person who's like, well, they're making their pepperonis out of babies in a basement. They don't even have a basement. And then they'll find like a sliver of a truth. Like there was a basement once and they didn't know about it. And thus they were lying and the whole thing. And, you know, everybody's just like, wait, they can't possibly fall for that. There's absolutely no reason. He just made up some lie and said it on TV. And then, of course, everybody falls for it.
Yes.
Yeah, and the guy's running for governor or something, and he's like, I am the best, I am the greatest, and I know this because there's nothing better. When I do it, it will be done better than anyone else has ever done it. And like, just like the way that he's like articulating the words, I'm like, okay, I see what you did there. That was pretty good. Yeah. Of course, they do have a point where they make fun of people believing in like a god kind of thing, and it's because, you know, there's really a reason, and it's not all spiritual or magic. I forget the storyline on that one. That one kind of lost me. Not because I cared that they were criticizing the religion. It was just kind of one of those. The episode was like people ascending to heaven, and the professor was going to prove that it wasn't really that. And I'm like, well, I know this show isn't going to suddenly become supernatural and have heaven and hell. I knew from the beginning that it was going to be something else and what they were going to kind of do. And I just kind of, it just didn't grab my attention same way. The episode that they literally travel to abstract numbers, that one got me. The bureaucracy episode, that one got me. I thought that was great. It ends with like a white hole thing. It was pretty entertaining. Of course, there's an episode of Fry trying to do this really huge romantic gesture for Leela and forgetting to water her one plant while she was gone. So they kind of delve into some of this relationship stuff of like, hey, it's not about one big romantic action. Sometimes it's about stability and, you know, they get
smaller actions.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. They find like, he ends up discovering a computer that can find your perfect match, and she's his perfect match, but someone else is her perfect match. And he goes through kind of a character arc in that episode where he's like, wait a minute, do I want her to be with who's perfect for her, or do I want... And of course, by everything that ends up happening, he ends up becoming the one that's perfect for her. You know? Of course, some of it's a little predictable, but as far as like comedy and everything goes, it did a really good job. It definitely makes fun of our own times and how... none of us seem to know how to communicate well, and how none of us seem to care enough about logic. We're just kind of like make up whatever and we'll roll with it. Yeah. And yeah, definitely strong emphasis on logic there, which I don't have a problem with. I have a problem when you try to juxtapose different things with logic and say basically you can't be this and be logical, spiritual or you can't believe in magic and be logical. I don't believe in magic, but some of the stuff where you're juxtaposing and kind of forcing an either or, I'm like, I think that's a false binary a lot of the times, not just because I'm religious, even some of the other stuff, like I am firmly against MAGA people, but the idea that you can't be of that kind of mindset and be logical at all, I just don't buy that. I believe that there are people who I firmly disagree with in politics who are very logical. That's just how the world works. Logic doesn't give you a clear one answer. It depends on your premises. It depends on all kinds of other factors. Logic isn't the capital T truth. There's only one capital T truth, and everything else we can be wrong about. We can have different premises. Our premise could be wrong. Our methods could be wrong, and we could still be logical and just make mistakes along the way. So, as much as it wants to lift logic up as the highest thing, I love logic. I don't know if I'm there with that.
That's one thing you got to be careful, either not to become yourself like a straw Vulcan, or to write a character who ends up as a straw Vulcan. That idea being, it's like you can use logic to justify anything. I think DS9 did that pretty well. That one Vulcan who joined the Maquis. It was like, hey, logically, it was the right decision for me to, get weapons for this bunch of rebels and essentially to the Cardassians terrorists. And then you also have that one Vulcan who suffering from PTSD and refusing to admit it later on in season 7. It's like, it was logical that I had to murder all these people. And if you're not careful about that, you view logic as supreme, then you can use it to justify anything versus actually appreciating the truth and the information presented to you, the facts, and building your decisions and stuff based off of that. So yeah, I can see how that would be a very annoying.
Yeah I mean, even, and I think this is true even of your more conservative biblical understanders, readers, interpreters, there we go. But as time's progressed and we've discovered older and older versions of the Bible, and we realize like a word here or there maybe isn't exactly interpreted correctly. I know specifically like Song of Songs, I think it's chapter 6 or 7. It says love is the very phileme of Yahweh, but for a long time the versions that we had just said love is, I forget, like a flame, and we didn't have the Yahweh part. And as we grow, we make new interpretations based on these older documents of the more accurate documents. And we're like, okay, hey, we didn't get this completely right. Because stuff like that does exist. I could have logically made a lot of stuff up from, certain scriptures that maybe later we found out, we didn't interpret that completely correct, right? And it's just, your premise matters a whole lot. You have the greatest logic in the world and still be wrong. And the thing about science, and that's where I feel like the show dropped the ball a little bit. And most science will tell you this. Science is constantly trying to prove itself wrong. It's testing the premise. It's testing the method. It's, and that's where people of faith have a hard time, because a lot of times we're like, hey, things are either right or wrong. And scientists are like, no, we know that this is the most likely outcome based off our tests and stuff, but it still could be wrong, and we're going to keep testing it. And that's where I'm like, when you lift science and stuff up, like this is logic, and if you do otherwise, you're being bad. Like, no, like the whole point of science is, hey, maybe the premise is wrong. Let's test it.
And there were multiple times over history where science was used incorrectly. The whole eugenics situation was a huge one. Like pretty much everyone was into it because they thought, well, why wouldn't we just want the best of the best out of humanity and breed this certain way, or get rid of that part we don't like? And that's where it ends up, to the point where people then justify genocide and taking out the disabled or anyone who could be othered by something like that. And this other things like germ theory was ridiculed for the longest time because, well, of course, it's just because your humors are out of balance. This is what the science tells us. This is what we think, versus people, that was how they understood it, didn't actually make it truth, because new information was presented which contradicted that, which other people then eventually took it to the point where we're better off now that we understand germ theory. We understand that, trying to create the Ubermensch is not exactly the best idea because it creates societal problems that humanity isn't prepared to handle.
Yeah. Well, and you got to think, even like with the data points we had at one point, it made sense why people believe the Earth was flat. With the data we had at one point, it made perfect sense why people were like, "Oh yeah, the sky is up there and it is blue." And now we're like, "Oh, it appears blue because of these reasons and what we learned about light." It's not because we were not being logical; it's because we just didn't have enough data to come up with the correct answer with some of this stuff, right? And the same thing is true of religion. I like the show doesn't get here. The show was talking about science and logic and trying to equate them, and that's why I'm harping on this. But the same thing is true of religion. We have seen plenty of times where there were probably plenty of people who were really logical in part of the Crusades and killed innocent people. Why would I say that? It's because from their data, they believed and were taught that the church had the authority of God, that it was brought from the apostles down. There was no reason for them to believe that the Pope would be telling them anything other than what Jesus would want. That is how their religion worked. That's how it's always worked. That's what they understood. They believed it for a reason. They prayed. They had faith. They saw that their parents did the same thing and it worked well for them. They were just given wrong information. It's not like they were bad people or wrong. Well, some of them probably were wrong and some of them probably were bad people, but some of them just didn't have the correct information to make the right choice. So that happens not just with science. It happens with faith. It happens with everything. It happens with our fandoms. Clearly, whoever made Pirates 5 just didn't watch the other movies. It didn't have the right information to make a good film. Not his fault. It's his fault for not watching the movie. Sorry. Okay, let's move on. All right, let's talk Elio. I have seen it briefly, but fell asleep. And then woke up and saw the end. So I'm still letting you take the bulk of this.
Yeah. So you're saying out there, like, oh, this isn't new. Well, it's new to me because I didn't see it when I was out in theaters. Did watch it on Disney Plus with some of the kids my mom watches, and you know what? It was fine. It's not groundbreaking. It's not the worst thing in the world I've ever watched that Disney's ever made. It is what it is. And what it is a story of a boy who's lost his parents, who is adopted by his aunt and feels out of place, doesn't know where he's supposed to be in the world. And he grabs a fascination of alien life and wanting to be out there in the stars, and maybe they'll accept me for who I am. Maybe, I'll fit in there what I can't do on Earth. And then along the way, he finds out, yeah, aliens are very real, and they've misinterpreted the message that he sent out to think that he's the leader of Earth. And they're asking him to join their, they call it the communiverse, where it's basically a very weak and pathetic version of the Federation. And how do I know it's weak and pathetic? Well, the moment the bad guys show up, who are seemingly are just generic bad guys, and even at parts of the film they are kind of generic bad guys, whose names escape me at the moment, they immediately cave in and they try and flee until Elliot steps up and says, "I'll be the ambassador diplomat. I'll speak to him." And it's through the shenanigans there where he ends up accidentally like insulting the leader and being put in prison there, where he's able to escape and meets the son of the leader, who this alien race are pretty much like Klingons on steroids without any bit of logic behind it. What they do, they're warfaring for the sake of being warfaring. And learning to accept this alien who looks nothing like him, and the two of them kind of bonding together, while at the same time his aunt trying to understand her nephew, that none of them asked for the situation, for her to be the primary caregiver now. But she's got a job. She wanted to be an astronaut, and she had to kind of lose that, to take care of him because he was a higher priority. And of course, there's friction that comes with that. So there's a lot to say about family and reconciliation and where you fit, in the universe. But at the end of the day, like, if I'm rating this film, I'm probably going to give it like a 6 out of 10 because it goes a little soft at the end. It goes a little too easy for how things go. Um, it's it's missing an edge that could have carried it up if there had been. I mean, there are stakes. Don't get me wrong, but if it had mattered more that those stakes existed.
Yeah, yeah. I felt exactly the same way and did research because of it because I was a little confused. So also, yeah, I enjoyed it. I probably agree with you. 6-ish. If I'm rating it against all Disney films, it's probably like a 2 out of 10. But like, I really like most Disney films.
Yes.
So like,
and we all know your rating
yeah,
system.
yeah, yeah. So like, yeah, it's not the best. I think it's less than average for Disney. But again, this is a Pixar, so this isn't just Disney animation, right? So
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Which was also what was weird is it kind of felt a little bit like Strange World, but watered down, and also more sci-fi. Strange
Uh,
World was Disney animation.
and that one is one of the most forgettable films I've ever watched. I couldn't tell you a
I
single thing that happened.
strongly disagree. I think that's one of the most underrated Disney films. I think it was fantastic, but I think what happened with it was largely they made a blatantly queer character, and a lot of people got mad about it. So Disney was like, "Let's never mention this again," because Disney is completely adverse to controversy.
Oh, speaking of, from what I understand, that's also something that kind of happened here. I believe, from what I read, that Elio himself was supposed to show a little more tendencies towards some side of the LGBT. I think it was gay, if I'm remembering correctly, and that I believe the director is gay, and Disney kind of gave notes, said nope, tone that down or get rid of it completely. And I think they got to get rid of it completely because there's no like romantic overtones
Yeah.
anywhere for anything.
Yeah, I have read that he was meant to be autistic, and that would actually make a little bit sense if he was on the spectrum because he's super into aliens. Like he's really fixated. Then when he goes, he does have a great time. This kid kind of reminds me of Will. Like I feel like if somehow Will was abducted by aliens, this might be what happened. He'd be like, "Yeah, this is awesome,
the greatest thing ever." Yeah, I'm leader of Earth.
Of course, let's do this, guys. Wears the cape and everything. I could see it, man. So the thing that did confuse me though, so like was you're talking about like the stakes thing, right? Adrian Molina was originally who was assigned to this film, and he's still partially credited in the credits, but he wasn't able to finish it. And that's where, like, if you saw some of the earlier advertisements, Elio was actually scared of going to space, not really excited for it. And this is what made this project so weird. It was basically a really personal story to him. He was using it kind of almost like as a metaphor for his own experience getting into like Hollywood and how he felt like an outsider. He was a little bit scared. You know, he did suffer that same kind of loss of his mom and stuff as a child, and all of that was kind of brought into the film, and it was this very emotional, intimate, thing for him, personal project. And then Disney Pixar said, actually, we want Coco too, and pulled him from the film. And the other directors were left with somebody else's extremely personal story, and we're like, what do we do with this? And I feel like that's why it feels like the stakes just aren't there, because it's, I think he probably would have done a much better job if he was just allowed to finish the film.
Yeah, that's immensely unfair.
Because Coco
only
is
to
incredible.
him, to the other directors.
Yeah, because it's like if for some reason you handed me a book that you're like, by the way, Josh, this is the most personal story I've ever written. Could you finish this for me? I'd be like, no, Christian, I am not finishing that for you. What are you talking about?
Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bob. Like, no, I can't do that.
Like, that's awful. Yeah, because so he did The Good Dinosaur too, which I think is underrated. It's not fantastic, but it didn't get the advertisement it needed. Coco, though, that might be the best Pixar film. Like, I love Coco so much, and it has some of the most emotionally deep connections. It's a film about grief and loss, and that's the whole reason I looked it up, because like this film starts and he's like an orphan, and they kind of brush past it, and I'm like, the guy who wrote Coco is just gonna brush past him. An orphan and his parents died. I'm like, that didn't sit right to me. And then I looked into it and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, that helps shine a little light on all that.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, you can't go wrong watching it. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, it is sci-fi. It's space, and it's fun, and the little slug character is funny, and yeah, I mean, I fell asleep for a little bit, but I'm gonna watch it again and probably laugh more. Won't fall asleep this time. I believe in myself. But I do want to ask you though. Curious, and I know we have a different perspective on some of this probably, but Pixar's been kind of on a kick lately on these like characters who feel out of water. You have Luca, you've got Coco, even a little bit, and then this film. How has this film kind of held up to those other Pixar films that they've more recently done of characters feeling out of water?
Um, Honestly, I'm there's a part of me that's kind of tired of it. I think at this point in time, they're just playing things safe to well, make enough of what looks like something that could go a little more, but not to mess with general audiences. And we'll just make enough, or maybe even more, from the box office, so that we can, then greenlight the next film that we're going to do. And there's a more cynical part of me that thinks around that idea, because, like I said, I do think this film is missing an edge, and I think uh, Luca missed a bit of an edge. Goodness gracious, I haven't seen Elemental yet. That's on my list to watch, because they also did Elemental at Pixar, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have the exact same thing. I enjoyed that one though. That was good. I also really enjoyed
Okay.
Luca, but uh, for me, of the ones I've seen, Luca did the best job of the character out of water thing. Because like the more recent ones that are doing this, let's see, I had a list here. Yeah, Onward, which was good, but it wasn't really as much about that. Soul kind of gets into it. Turning Red for me was kind of a flop. Lightyear, I was like,
Oh
eh.
yeah,
There was a lot that I'm
Lightyear
like,
was
man,
awful.
Pixar. I'm like, what are y'all doing? But I did really enjoy Luca. But the thing with Luca is I would not have enjoyed it if I had watched it in the theaters. I think it's because it was straight to Disney Plus, and I was kind of casually watching it, and I was like, it's nice. It's kind of like when you pick up a short story, and you're like, man, that was really refreshing. That's how I felt about Luca. I was like,
Yeah,
that was refreshing. A nice little story. And the
yeah.
father figure was
Luke,
just so lovable that it kind of sold it for me.
Luke, I'd probably put at a 7 out of 10 overall, because it
Yeah.
was fun. Yeah, I think they did play out of all these fish out of water scenarios. I think they played to it the best. Earth on the sea, how that kind of meshed.
Mhm.
Uh, but like Turning Red, man, I wanted to like that. It just didn't
Yeah.
hit me. And yeah, Lightyear was an abomination.
Yeah. We won't even talk about Lightyear. And I think that's the thing here. And again, I understand orphan story. It's important. It's important to the original director. All that the aunt and him do kind of reconcile. But I feel like without that moment of acceptance, just a kid going out trying to. I think that's the problem. When you're making a story of like, I don't feel like I belong, but you have this Disney mentality that all of our stories has to be that the power is within you, you create your own destiny kind of stuff. That doesn't work. You can't create your own feeling of belonging. You have to kind of rely on other people for that a little bit. And I think that's what Luca did a lot better than this film, as far as what I could tell. Because again, I fell asleep for a little bit. But Luca has that one dad figure who's not his dad, and everybody sees him when he turns into the sea monster on in their little town, and they get really like, "Oh, it's a monster!" And he goes up and hugs him. And I
Yeah,
don't think you have that same kind of moment in this film, and that's what it's lacking for me.
there's a nice enough reconciliation moment between
But it's
him and
not
his aunt
like,
in the film, but it's not like there's no. I mean, it's missing something else.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah,
I don't know what I would do to fix it. Which, I love fixing things, and that's kind of bothering me. But like, I struggle to think of what I would do
I
to
got
like
it.
give it a
He
little extra
meets
oomph.
Lightyear.
Oh gosh.
All right, are you good to move on to the last one?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
All right, Dexter Resurrection. Dear God, I Dexter is back, and I didn't think I was ever gonna get to say it. It's one of those where you're like, they keep trying, and it's like, guys, the magic's gone. You got lightning in the bottle. You're not gonna do it twice. Well, they did it twice. Dexter Resurrection was phenomenal. The first few episodes, I was like, okay, it's good. It's kind of like old Dexter. Okay, I see what they're doing. And then all of a sudden you get introduced to Peter Dinklage's character, and you discover that basically there's a group of serial killers that come and have this kind of secret like meeting where they get to be themselves. They have their own like little rules for their club, and it's because they never get to admit what they do to anybody else. And Peter Dinklage is like this super rich guy. He kind of like controls the place. He's basically Kingpin. They kind of pull a Kingpin, and it's so good. You even have like some of the old original Dexter characters who come back. You have real stakes to the show again, where like some deaths actually matter. I really enjoyed it, and I think so. The things that stand out to me was one, and it was weird because I know a lot of it is a little bit of fan pandering, you know. But so first out of the way, I kind of like that they just brushed off what happened in Dexter New Blood. They were like, yeah, he's not dead. They really just kind of brush it off. At one point, Harrison makes a joke about it, and he's like, "You're like Michael Myers. You just won't stay dead." And he's like, "I don't know, man. Dying's not for me." You know, just
Yeah.
it just they make light of it and they move on. And I think that was the only way forward, because that ending was so bad. It was like, we're just gonna have to, suspense, disbelief, whatever. If you want the show to continue, you're just gonna have to accept a bad premise, because that's the only way forward past that, and we're just gonna act like it didn't happen. Which is fine. So we end up with actual Dexter back. He has his original name. People know he's alive again, and he's in New York. A lot of shenanigans go on. Harrison almost gets framed for murder. So you have him learning to be a dad, and at the same time, his dad's back is like his ghost person, whatever, that he sees. So you have this like father son thing, and thinking about like what his dad did for him, all that. I think the things that's fun is one, you having this like secret organization thing actually made it something different. Like, it wasn't just, there's a big bad guy of the season and Dexter's gonna whatever. No, it was like a whole secret organization. Dexter had to do some almost like spycraft level stuff, and he's pretending to be somebody else. He's doing this whole thing, and I'm like, oh, this is good. And then the last few episodes were the first time in a long time that I felt myself with the show going, "What do you mean you ended it there?" And I'm like, oh, that's how I know it's good, is that I'm like seriously spending the entire week going, is it Friday? Is it Friday? Did I wake up and it's Friday? No, Josh, it's Monday. Is it Friday? It's Tuesday. Like, I was going insane. I really enjoyed it. The philosophy. Sorry. I also enjoyed that they are moving forward with the philosophy stuff. That they're showing that, hey, we're going to just move forward. We're going to stop asking the same questions over and over. We're going to stop doing the same stuff over and over. But at the same time, it's like they're acknowledging that. And at the same time, and Dexter straight up looks at the camera and says this at one point, hey, we're just going to give you Dexter. We're not going to do this thing of like, oh, he's trying to stop being a serial killer. Oh, he's going to do, they keep trying to like switch it up with these new shows. And Dexter more or less looks at the screen at the end and goes, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to be true to myself, because that's what I need. And that's what you need. Like, he looks at the camera and says it. And I'm like, I think he's right. It is what I need. Do it again, Dexter. Oh man. So I had fun with it. The thing that I want to get to with the philosophy stuff though, he kind of gets to this point of, I am a serial killer. I need to learn to accept this. I have a way of coping with it, doing stuff. And yes, I probably will get caught. I'll probably die one day. I don't need to try to force my son to be that if that's not what he is. And they have this kind of thing of like accepting who you are and trying to work who you are the best that you can. And him accepting that he is a serial killer. I'm not going to do this thing again where I question, why am I a serial killer? Or I'm going to try and stop for my family. He's like, I'm a serial killer. How do I do this role that I've been given as my nature in a way that brings the most flourishing to everyone around me, I guess. And I kind of like that. I kind of like that they're not going to go, oh, he's going to try and stop. And oh, maybe this is why he's a serial killer. Like we had so many seasons. Oh, maybe this is why. That I'm like, I'm just happy to have it be like, you know what? I am a serial killer. Now what? What do we do now? Like, I like that idea of him kind of coming to peace with it, even if I'm like, yeah, maybe being a serial killer is bad. But, you know, the thing is, what's really interesting is, and I'm glad I didn't rehash all this, is you still have him like where some of the other serial killers, he's seeing their motives and how they get joy out of it. And he's like, what is wrong with you? Why are you happy about killing somebody? And you see him still get a little bit of disgust out of somebody killing just because it was this kind of girl, and I like killing this kind of girl. And he's genuinely disgusted. And you know, with everything from the original show, you do always wonder, like, did he actually need to be a serial killer, or did Harry turn him into this?
Yeah.
And I'm glad that that's still there for us viewers, but he's just going to go, you know what? This is what I am. Let's move on.
Fair.
But yeah. So I guess my question to my conservatively minded friend, and this is what's really funny about this particular conversation. You are more okay with utilitarianism than I am. I am like, yeah, the ends never justify the means. But you are more of the biblical literalism kind of, you know, whatever kind of stuff. So it's very funny because it's like I'm on the side of like, yeah, I don't actually know if you're born naturally evil. Like I kind of am questioning that premise of like, oh, I'm born with whatever evilness. I'm just going to accept it and do the best I can with it. I'm like, oh, maybe you just don't need to be evil. And maybe all things were created good. But I'm also like, utilitarianism is bad, but I like Dexter and I don't know what to do with that. Because something just feels good about bad guys dying, you know, like them having to see their own crime and being punished for it. You're like, yeah. But I'm like, wait a minute. I do want everyone to be saved and find Jesus, and I love my enemies. But man, sometimes it just feels good to watch Dexter cut some of these people up. So I don't know what to do with that. Christian, though, you are more okay with utilitarianism, and you do kind of accept this kind of idea that people can be born evil. So what do you do with this kind of idea of like accepting your evilness and trying to work it for good?
I don't think people can be born evil. I think we're born evil. Sin itself is evil. I do believe in the doctrine of original sin, but I do believe a great part of being human is resisting this broken creation that we live in, because we weren't created evil. It's through the introduction of sin that has twisted us to be this way. And for a character like Dexter, I've only ever watched the original show, so I'm missing some context of what's happening here. But for what you're describing, it sounds way better than what we got in some of those later seasons. It's
Yes.
that idea: can there be someone psychopathic, sociopathic, who is just born wrong, as it were, compared to, let's say, everyone else is normal? Just use that just for the sake of using words. Yeah, I think it's certainly possible. Living in a fallen world, not everyone's born equal in the sense of having genetics work this way or that way. Maybe there was a flaw in the brain. Maybe he was accidentally dropped on his head as a child, or there can be people who've suffered abuse and that makes them go a certain way. But just because someone suffers abuse doesn't mean they automatically go ultra evil. There's certain people who've gone through that and they've grown out of it to become people who would never want to repeat that cycle. But for Dexter himself, what Harry noticed in him all the way back was there was just that look in his eye, and his justification was, okay, I've got to train him out of this to redirect it to where he can still kill, but he's killing people who were better off not having around. And I guess with everything that you're saying, is that a good thing for him? No, it's not. But I think that one of the things that God does is he works despite people's evil. So he's definitely not using Dexter as an avenging angel or anything like that. But he was still, knowing who Dexter is, would bring him to the point where he can kill someone else so that other people are not lost, or this woman is not abused anymore, or what have you. So I would say Dexter is still an evil man throughout the entire series. But one of the good things about this show, as opposed to other shows where you have a villain protagonist, is that they do a good enough job of building it up to where his adversaries are a little more evil than him. So you still are on his side as a character to an extent, because he's taking out, like, the Trinity Killer or what have you, to make sure that other people don't suffer. So is this how I would have raised Dexter? Absolutely not. I would have actually, sent the child to therapy and done whatever possible to get these urges out of him, to recognize these are improper things. You shouldn't be thinking this way. You can't be acting this way. It's not how a rational person in society should work. Um, what other parts of your question did you have? Have I answered? What have I answered?
I don't know. I'll say though, like, the thing that's interesting he comes to, and one of the things I do really appreciate is they have a moment where he kind of realizes that Harry, his dad, instilled in him this sense of justice. And some part of his nature actually just wants justice. And that's where, like, you do throughout all of the shows, you'll see sometimes where Dexter's like, yeah, I can't kill him, I'll get caught, but I actually do know how to get them caught. And sometimes the choices that he makes is he actually just wants the bad guys to get punished. Like, whether you want to call it revenge, justice, whatever, he's like, he has this innate sense of justice that he got from Harry, even with all the other messed up stuff, right? Right. And he does have that nature that he feels like he has to kill. For me, I'm like, man, I don't believe people are born sinful. I don't believe original sin. I do believe people can be born sociopath and psychopaths, because anything's possible. I don't know the science behind any of that. I struggle with the character of Dexter a lot. And part of it is because, like, I don't like utilitarianism, but man, if you're going to be utilitarianism, Harry has this whole system where it's like, not only do you have to prove that they actually did commit the crime, you also have to prove that they're likely to do it again. And the stakes that he goes through, I'm like, yeah, I don't believe in utilitarianism because I think it takes a lot of arrogance. But man, that system is near flawless. It's like, man, I have a hard time arguing with that. But at the same time, killing's wrong. And I just don't think Dexter had to be that way. I like that sense of justice. I like that they show that Dexter actually gave that same sense of justice. He instilled it to Harrison. So there's still good in Dexter. I believe there's good in everybody. I don't know what to do with a lot of the character of Dexter. It's difficult. And that's why I enjoy watching it. I like that he does have that sense of justice. And sometimes he's going to do the right thing, even if it means he doesn't get the kill he so desperately wants. And I think it also is probably because it challenges me. Not only is it nice to see really bad guys lose and get punished, because, sometimes people do fall through the cracks of our justice system and we're all aware of it. And sometimes it's just nice to think maybe somebody out there is righting the wrongs. But I don't know if I want it righted that way. It just, but also for someone who doesn't believe in utilitarianism, doesn't believe in killing, all this stuff, seeing, man, if I would have Dexter do things my way, a lot of these serial killers would be free killing other people. So that really challenges me in my own beliefs. Because I'm like, man, I don't want people to die. And if he did things my way, more people would die.
Well, not necessarily. Yeah. If his dad had actually turned him a different way, because the philosophy, yeah, you're right, is make sure they're A, that they did it, and B, that they're capable of doing it again. Well, if you're going to put all that work in, why not just become a private detective or even a police officer yourself, and then you can put it the correct way to bring justice the correct way. And of course, there's always, some people do have, lawyers that they can get out of anything, or some people slip through the cracks because of a filing, something went wrong there, and there's still someone out there, murdering people, but that's not his job. Not everyone's called to be the Punisher, and I would argue Frank Castle isn't called to be the Punisher. I don't think that's what God had in mind for him. I think, in this circumstance, he still uses him despite himself. And same thing with Dexter. Uh, but yeah, as someone who does believe a little more in utilitarianism, that's because I believe that you need absolutes to keep people set and make sure that things are done for the sake of as many people being good as taken care of as possible. Um, but there is, and I also believe that everyone is capable of lowercase g good, and I'm going to separate that from what I would qualify as capital G good, as in good that's done for the sake of the kingdom. Uh, there are people who know nothing of Jesus can do good things all day long, but that does not make them good as far as it pertains to the kingdom.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas I probably wouldn't separate the two as strictly. I don't think everything's that black and white. But that's, neither here nor there. I just, yeah. And it's funny, not funny, but it's interesting because a lot of the serial killers and stuff that he's fought before, that he's taken out, they've been the characters that, like, they're just worse serial killers than him, killing other people who've just gotten away with it or slipped through the cracks or whatever. It's interesting having a character in this show who isn't a serial killer, who's just bringing serial killers to him and enabling them. And it's like he didn't actually do the crime himself. So some of that made it really interesting too. And you just have this like, yeah, when do the rules apply? When do they not apply? When do the ends justify the means? All that, and a lot of this whole is our nature actually just something we need to accept and figure out a way to work with? I'm still gonna go with no. I still go with, hey, you can change. Anyone can change. You can become a bad person, a good person, a mediocre person. You can be someone who puts in a lot of effort at work. You can be someone who puts in no effort at work. Some things you were born with, skill, height. You're not going to make yourself taller or shorter or anything like that. I'm not one of those things that think you can do anything if you put your mind to it. I don't believe that. But I think like as far as like character traits, your own soul, your person, you can do things. Again, some people are born sociopaths, psychopaths. Some people, like, I will always have ADHD. Like, I'm not talking about that kind of thing. But, like, for myself, for a long time, I wanted to be perceived as dark and shady. So I would, I would wear, like, black shirts all the time. And I was like, you know what? I don't care about you. I don't care about anybody. And, like, some of it was an act, and some of it was, like, truly felt that way. And still, like, I'm an introvert. But now I'm like, hey, I'm an introvert and I found ways to still love people, spend time with people online, because that's a way to spend time with people and be an introvert at the same time. Found ways to not have to act all brooding, because like, just because I don't want to spend time with you doesn't mean I'm upset. Sometimes I'm really joyful and happy that you're over there on the other side of the camera. Sometimes I'm just a happy person who happens to like his own company. And I changed myself in that way. I've changed a lot of my beliefs because I was shown different information, right? I was somebody who was really lustful, and I had a lot of pity about myself, and sometimes I still put myself down too much. But I am able to work on these things. I don't have to accept that, oh, I am a depressed person and I am someone who's going to be gloomy all the time. No, I don't have to accept that, actually. I can talk to people. I can get help. I can read my Bible. I can find things that bring me joy and lean into that. Even if it's a silly game called Kingdom Hearts. Everybody's like, Josh, why do you talk about it so much? And I'm like, well, you know what? It's because it makes me a happier person. And I like that.
He went for an hour, Will. He did his best.
So, I don't know. That's where I'm at. What about you? I know you believe in the original sin thing. But as far as like this kind of thing, I feel like this is a different type of, when we use the word nature, I think we're meaning something slightly different in the context of this Dexter show. Do you think people just have to accept their nature in the sense of like, if you were born just an angry person, you just have to accept that and find a way to be angry at the right things?
Well, I think we need to accept that there are parts of us that make us act that way, and then not remaining where we are. The worst thing we can ever do is remain where we started. The easiest thing to do is to stay that way, because there's a certain comfort in that, even though we may do terrible things to other people, because it makes us feel good. But at the end of the day, it's not about how I feel. I need to move past it. I'm a very introverted person. I'm a very misanthropic person. I don't love other people naturally. And that is something I have to say. I am by nature, as a fallen human being, a very misanthropic person who hates humanity and hates other people for making decisions that aren't logical to me. Then I'd say, oh, I shouldn't be this way, especially in light of all that's been forgiven on my account by my Savior, and go, so what do I do with that? I need to change. Even though I am still, there will be days where I am mired in that misanthropy and my hatred of humanity. I can't stay there. I need to move beyond that. I need to go out there and love other people. I need to serve. I need to do things that push me outside of my comfort zone so that those things that can do good are actually comforting versus something that if I had remained where I was, I would never think to do those things because why would I care about someone else? Why not just looking out for me, number one? And that's a terrible way to live. So if you're
Yeah.
out there right now and you're feeling that way, I'd say, yeah, acknowledge that's where you are, but also acknowledge it's not where you need to remain. So work on it. And it's gonna suck at times. It's gonna take
Mhm.
extra work and effort, and you're gonna get tired, but it's worth the effort.
Yeah. Yeah. I like all that. I will say two more things, and then I'll be done. The instilled thing from his father that he also instilled in Harrison, I think that's very much a real thing, and I like that they brought that up. Um, and that can be for better or worse. I had from my grandparents and stuff. Like I've learned how to, I had it instilled in me from my dad's dad. We are the kind of people who, once you enter our lives, guess what? You're part of the family. You're a Knoll now, and literally, that's it. My grandfather would ask about my one friend that he met 15 years ago every single day till he died when I called him. It did not matter. He would say his name wrong. Hey, how's Easy? But he would always ask about him. How's Shamu? Always ask about him. He would get the name wrong, but he would always ask. My aunts would always send letters to these people at Christmas, even if they haven't seen them in 10 years. Why? Because once you're in, you're in. And I've had that instilled in me. And that's how I treat the people in my life. Like, yeah, you're now part of this, part of our family. Um, yeah. And I've also had, in my family, there's this streak of stubbornness and doing stuff just because, showing off kind of deal. My one grandpa used to go into stores, and if he saw a Virginia Tech shirt, he'd turn it around so people can't see it. Screw them. And you know what? I have that mischievousness in me, and I have that little bit of stubbornness and just trying to be different than everybody else in me. That I want to just be different and contrarian just to be contrarian. And that's something I fight in myself, but I had it instilled in me. So I think the family bit's important. I also think there's like certain building blocks, right? For a while, I was really angry a lot. And instead of accepting anger, I realized I'm a passionate person. I accept the passion. I think that's the building block. It doesn't have to be channeled into anger. I now channel my passion into fandoms and Kingdom Hearts and making Will drink a lot and laughing with friends. I can channel my passion differently. It doesn't have to be anger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Finding ways to redirect that is always a good idea. Something that can be used for a positive instead. The net gain for not only yourself but others.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not necessarily a spiritual thing. But I do think God also can help us do these things. I think it's easier with faith than without it. But that just is I think it's a true thing. That's the lowercase g good in Christian stance. I think all of us can do that. Get help, seek others, learn enough about ourselves and go, wait a minute, am I angry? Or do I just have a lot of energy? And can I use that energy for something other than anger? Am I depressed or am I lonely? And is there a way that I don't have to be so lonely? Maybe looking a little bit deeper into yourself can help. Yeah. In fact, maybe that's what Dexter needs. Does he like killing bad guys? Or is it just that he really wants justice? And he can go be that police cop that Christian wants him to be. All right. Are you ready to wrap this one up?
Let's do it.
All right. Yeah. All All right, guys. Thank you guys again so much for checking us out on YouTube, for following us on the podcast, whatever you're doing to follow us. You guys rock. And we're going to go ahead and, as we're wrapping this up, as always, we have to pick one of these IPs that we mentioned for your top pick. Like, what is, of everything we mentioned, even in the lightning round, if there's only one thing that people are going to check out, what should it be, Christian?
If you've watched the original Dexter, I'd say check out the new stuff. I haven't watched it yet; it's on my list to do. And what you've described of it does sound pretty intriguing. So I'm interested whenever I get to it. Who knows when that's going to be? But I will get to it.
Yeah, I want to make that my top pick too, but I don't want to be lame and just say what Christian said. And also, I know it's not for everybody. It is pretty dark, and it gets into some like really like question your own morality kind of stuff. So if you're not ready for something like that, you want something a little bit lighter.
Oh, yeah, definitely heavy.
Futurama. Futurama is a solid comedy. So I don't know. Oh, we also mentioned Peacemaker though, but that's also not for everybody. We mentioned a lot of good stuff. It's hard to pick. So I am just gonna I'm gonna second Dexter. Dexter Resurrection was just great. Better than a lot of the actual seasons of the original show. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Better than most of the seasons after 4. So, with that, if you're on a laptop, consider rating reviewing our show on Podchaser or GoodPods. It can help our show gain recognition, make it easier to find in search engines like Google. If you're on your phone, consider rating, reviewing, or commenting on our show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It'll help prioritize the show in those apps' algorithms, which is where most people listen to podcasts. So it helps us a whole lot. It takes like 2 or 3 clicks, not a lot of time. And it just helps people find the show, and that's really important to us, and we appreciate it. We also appreciate people who can put a little bit of financial oomph in their support. So our financial sponsors are awesome. You can support the show on Apple Podcasts, Cat Feed, or Patreon. Today we're shouting out Ethan, the beautiful, handsome, wonderful, smart guy, Ethan Overcash. If you want your own shout out, you too can get random compliments for $3 a month on one of those 3 platforms, Apple Podcasts, Cat Feed, or Patreon. And of course, we need you all to do one really important thing for us, and remind me to hit the outro music. No. One very important thing for us, and remember that we are all a chosen people, a geekdom, a priest. Until next time.